Humanianity, a new religious call. Humanianity, religion for us all. Humanity, now we all can see. Humanity, how much better we can be.
Hi, I'm Bill Van Fleet, and this is Humanianity Conversation number 93, recorded on December 30th, 2020. It is the second recorded conversation with David Whalen, an advocate for Objectivism. We explored the basic foundations of Objectivism to see if we could experience mutual understanding and agreement, but found that we had almost immediate difficulty. However, we plan to continue. Hi, David.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Good. How are you? So we have some pretty big topics to to discuss.
Yeah. And after we talked the first time, we kind of did some broad strokes about some different things, and so I was thinking to myself, with Ayn Rand's objectivism, it's a very hierarchical philosophy, and you really have to understand the base of it to understand everything else correctly, because I think, and I've seen people do this, they read something that she says maybe about ethics, and they say, well, this is crazy. But it's not crazy if you understand why she's saying it from her metaphysics. That has, you know what I mean? And very important that we start there. And so I'm basing an outline that I made up to kind of give us a good flow of it. It's from Leonard Peikoff's book. He wrote a systematic book called Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand. And he was like a star pupil of hers. And so he put it all together. And also, too, they made a Ayn Rand lexicon in the same order, which is a very good book as well. And then, of course, all the other books I've read by her. So as I go along, anytime you want to stop and talk about that a certain thing, we can elaborate more on that and discuss that further. So how's that sound?
Well, I'm making the assumption that you and I have probably somewhat different worldviews, and that uh, the task at hand is not to become necessarily totally familiar with Ayn Rand's ways of thinking, but instead you and I comparing our beliefs to see where they diverge and why they diverge, and see and have as our goal coming to agreement, but always with the ability to reverse that at some point where, if we realize it's not something went wrong in the understanding.
Okay, well, that's perfect then. And so I think today then, from both our belief systems, we should start with reality. What is reality? I think that's a really important for any philosophy, really. That's where you should start, I believe. Because then from everything else, it only makes sense that if you say this, that comes from your view of reality. Otherwise, you wouldn't say it. So really in objectivism, there's three basic axioms it starts with: existence, consciousness, and identity. Those are three, and that's in the philosophical order of it, but those are the three axioms that objectivism starts with. And they are, you know, indisputable. Now, there's a chronological order for man, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, those aren't axioms because they are not sentences. I'm assuming they're labels that are put on certain sentences, and that those sentences are axioms. Is that correct?
Right, they're defined. Uh, um, yeah, they are defined, but they label them then, I guess, as you could say, how would you define that better? These are the three, well, yeah, they would be axioms because we do define them, what it means. And then, as for example, like existence, it's real simple, it's two words. The axiom is that existence exists. That's what she would say. That
Yeah.
there's in it, and it's these axioms, I guess, and the definition that they would use in objectivism is that they're self-evident um, axioms that are like indisputable, like without you can't deny them. I mean, you can if you wanted to, but you'd have to try to um, deny reality in a way to try to say that it doesn't exist. So, for example, the universe, we know as humans it exists. Now, people can tell themselves it doesn't exist, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Most humans, we really do believe that it does exist. Um, and These three then are the foundation uh, of everything of reality that objectivism builds upon. It'll build
Okay.
from things.
Mhm.
Now,
But are you familiar? I'm assuming you have not read my book two, second book on the mind-body problem.
no, I was going to save that. I was going to address a little bit of that, but I didn't want to read that until we actually decided to have a full discussion on that,
Uh-huh.
on just
Okay.
that, because that is a big topic in objectivism too. Ayn Rand spent a lot of time on that because, as you'll see as we go on, um, the mind-body dichotomy is a big problem in philosophy that can
Yes.
she was under the belief it can mislead people down the wrong path and the wrong ideas about life and so forth. Um, Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up, because we talked about this a little bit last time, and I kind of messed up. I was trying to hold to the nature of man, but I kind of messed up in trying to explain like with an infant and so forth. But there is a uh, a chronological order for mankind. So existence is first, identity would come second with entities and things like this. Later, as a child grows, it starts to get awareness, the consciousness starts to develop. So these are the attributes of humans and we are what I would call rational animals of the
Yeah, well,
highest
see,
rational.
I'm already lost. By the way, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
Is it your belief that animals other than humans do have consciousness or don't?
They do have the higher primates, the higher animals do have of course, sense perceptions like we do. They have, and some have uh, what we would consider a consciousness. But where objectivism would differ with humans is that humans have the ability with our consciousness to conceptualize, where um, animals aren't. They're not able to conceptualize like we can, and man needs to for our survival because um, the way we're made, we just can't survive if we're just born naked into the world. And you know, um, we gotta learn our what's going on. We got to be aware. We got to build stuff. We got to, we got to get food. We got to do things, and we can start to conceptualize ideas and learn how to do things for our survival, first and foremost. Where animals, they have sense perception, but yet in nature, they have it's like nature kind of takes care of them more than than it does with us. They are able to um, uh, they have a little bit of conscience to kind of figure out things, to see things, what they have to do, but they don't have to build a house or have clothes to stay warm like we do. Now, some of them build their own homes and stuff like this. They do things like that. But like a bear living out in the woods, he doesn't have to learn how to make clothes like we would have to survive out there. So,
See, I I have significantly different ideas about this. I am in agreement with you that we humans are drastically different, and we're different by virtue of two exponential changes that have taken place. And the first one, it's hard to know exactly when it took off, but it's way up high. And the second one, we're going up currently. But in another way, we're still like chimpanzees, and but getting a little bit better. And we've got a long way to go. So I can elaborate on all of that. But what you brought up at first, the first thing that is worrying me is that you are um, taking three words and saying that those three words are three axioms. And I don't think a word can be considered to be an axiom. An axiom has to be a sentence. It is a proposition in a uh, logical system. It is whatever is accepted as uh, true, using the word true the way it means in a logical system. It's just a property of a proposition. So it can be true in the logical system, but it can be very incorrect when applied to the world that we live in. Like for instance, parallel lines do not meet. They stay at the same distance from each other. And that can be accepted as an axiom, and that gives us Euclidean geometry. But that does not apply to the real world, as we know, because there's curvature of space-time and all that, about which I know very little. But but at any rate, so we've got these three words, and we might take a look at word number one, and then number two, and then number three. Does that sound?
yeah, and right, and actually, one of the points you're talking about is Ayn Rand wanted to create a philosophy that was reality. That's why she spends a lot of time on reality. And as we talk more about objectivism, you'll hear me say that a person's either in reality or out of reality, because a human can check out of reality if they want to. And what does that mean? And
Yeah.
so she wanted to make sure that the starting point of her philosophy was grounded in reality. And that's why she started with these three things. So let's talk about the first thing, existence. So
Well, wait a minute. The first thing is, no, that's right. The first word,
existence,
existence. Okay.
existence, yes.
Uh,
So existence, it is. These are the things that are. Um,
okay. Okay. Now,
yeah.
if I may suggest something, we now have a sentence, existence exists. Now, if by existence we mean that which exists, then all that is a tautology. Now, I would maintain, although I haven't explored this in tremendous depth, that the word exist has all sorts of different meanings. It does not have just one meaning. Now, I'll give you an example. We take a look and we see two people, a man and a woman. Okay, so we say that those two people exist, that what exists is two people. We find out they're married. So now there's a third entity, a married couple that has come into existence. We can ask, what does the word exist mean in the first case, and what does it mean in the second case? And then let's take another one. We can say that democracy exists. What does exist mean then? We can say contradiction exists. What does exist mean then? We can say confusion exists. What does that mean then? We can say that North Carolina exists, but what does exist mean then? So I would maintain that the word exist has multiple meanings, and I've not explored in my thinking, explored that deeply, but exist is a word in language, and so it is a cooperative act of agreement to use a word in a particular way. And so here we're using the same word in what appear to be somewhat different ways, although we probably would say that that there was an understanding, agreement among people to mean a thing about that, to mean that there was agreement about what it was that was being labeled as existing. So,
well, this may help you. Yeah, and you're bringing up good points because I think this will help you out. When Ayn Rand starts with this at this level right here, she is talking about what we perceive right away, existence. What you're talking about, let's say you have a man and a woman, or first you figure out, oh, this is a man, it's a shape, it's a man. Then I see a woman, it looks different. Then they're married. Now you're starting to get into concept formation that humans do through their consciousness as they learn, and that's how they develop knowledge. They start, identity comes next, the entity is the identity, and then they start to formulate concepts, from man, tall man, short man, and so forth. Those things start to come later. What I'm talking about right now is that as humans, through our natural perceptions, we know there are things here immediately that exist. We don't have to develop any concepts yet about that. That comes as we grow and we learn and we're taught things. But it's the immediate perception is that there's a real world here that exists. I exist. This world exists. There's things here that just exist. So um, the reason why this is an important tenet in uh, as a starting point, which everything else bases on, is because in the objectivist philosophy, existence takes primacy over our consciousness. And this is going to be very important in her philosophy all the way through, because she does not believe that man's consciousness takes primacy over existence.
See, okay, I'm completely lost at this point. I don't know what takes primacy over means.
Well, maybe this way will help you out. I guess an easy illustration would be religion. Okay. Religion does the easy one, so I'm not attacking religious people or anything, but this is a very easy example. That's why I'm using it. So let's say you take a Christian, Western Christianity, and Western Christianity, their rule book of life is their Bible. Okay. They believe God gave them this word, and this word tells them what's right and what's wrong and how they have to live and how they have to believe, like this.
Yeah, that's not true of all Christians, and it is not true of all religions.
Right. I'm just using an example of some religions that teach that. So so for example, let's say that they are they have to go by the Bible, live by it. Okay, what it says, and then their interpretation from what their church believes. And so this is just an example. I'm not, like I said, I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just trying to explain what I mean by the primacy thing.
Yeah.
So they have to then make their conscience have primacy over existence. Existence then now has to match what they believe. Or another way to put it, objectivism is against any a priori theories that go out first, and then existence has to match that theory. Rather, it's the other way around. If man comes up with a theory or a belief, let's say, it has to match what's in our existence, and what we know about it as we learn and we discover it in nature and everything, in our existence. As we learn that, then we can say this theory works. It's not a theory; it's actually a concept. This concept now actually works because it matches the existence. Um,
And see, I'm not following your word usage there. I tell you, one thing that might be helpful would be for me to clarify my worldview that I partially did about the three exponential changes. And so that you'll know kind of, that'll help you to know to whom you're speaking. In other words, how to formulate what will be meaningful to me, hopefully. So I am in agreement with the idea of evolution on this planet, and that we humans are just one species among all the thousands of species that have come and gone on this planet. We are hominids, like our cousins, as they say, the chimpanzees and bonobos, and the chimpanzees and gorillas. And all of us, and we're hominids, and all of us have the same things built into us, essentially, manifesting themselves in different ways. And, some are bigger than others. And so there's matters of degree and so on. I think that humans, developed for whatever reason a capacity that is had by some other species, but to a very limited extent. And it generally does not manifest itself in those species. And that is the ability to use symbols and the rules of syntax. So what that means is symbols. We have words or other things that stand for something else. And we put them together into sentences or propositions according to certain rules, and those are the rules of syntax. And so what has happened is that has taken off. It is a psychosocial change based upon our somewhat increased capacity for doing certain things, our frontal lobes or something, prefrontal cortex, whatever. And so initially it was only a few words, and it would be, those words would be different at different places among different groups of humans. And as time went on, more and more words or symbols would appear, and it eventually took off exponentially, so that now it is essentially unlimited. And of course, our symbolic language doesn't have to be just audible words. It can be written words. It also can be mathematical symbols, and so on. Now, we do know that we can teach other species sign language, and presumably there's some ability to use symbols in sign language. And the difference between symbols and signs, as I understand it, symbols stand for something else, and signs just produce a response. But I haven't really explored that in great detail. At any rate, that first exponential change has enabled us as humans to do certain things to a much greater extent than any other species. And the two main things are there's increased capacity for empathy, because we can tell each other what it's like to be oneself. And I always use this example. I can tell you what I was thinking about yesterday, doing tomorrow, and how I feel about it. And what I think, you may be thinking about how I feel about it, and so on. No other species can do that. So that is one capability. So we have much greater capacity for empathy of others, to understand each other. The second thing that it produces is a much greater ability to give each other instructions. I can tell you how to get to some distant place that you've never been just with my words. And so with our increased ability to give each other instructions or suggestions, and thus to cooperate more, we are able to, as groups of individuals, do things that no other species can. So we become very, very creative. Okay, that is exponential change number one. And what has happened is that it has brought about the second exponential change. The second exponential change is what I would call rationality. And it consists of two areas. One is the use of the rules of logic in a logical system that I mentioned earlier. And the other is the rules of evidence, which are used in scientific methodology. And what those rules do, they allow us to develop highly accurate beliefs about what, quote, exists and how it works and how to do things so we can get ourselves to the moon and back and do what you and I are doing right now with these strange contraptions and so on. And no other species can do that. Now, the problem is that in another sense, we are just chimpanzees still, in quotes, chimpanzees in quotes. So we are talking high-tech chimpanzees doing what chimpanzees do, but in our highly unique human ways. So chimpanzees fight with each other. We humans fight with each other. Chimpanzees go to war. We go to war. Chimpanzees engage in struggles for dominance. We do that all the time. We are a dominance hierarchy species, just like chimpanzees. And the problem is that some of these things built into us and chimpanzees cause a tremendous amount of pain, suffering, disability, and early death. So what therefore, well, there's a way in which we are like chimpanzees that I am referring to, and that is our ethics. And ethics is our beliefs about what we should and should not do. And social animal species all have an ethics, and it is primarily authoritarian. In other words, how do you know what you should do? It's whatever X wants you to, X being whoever or whatever is most powerful. And the problem is that there can be no worldwide agreement about who X is or what X wants us to do and so forth. And the ethics that each of us has, the ethical beliefs that we have, are built into us, are formed in us by the cultures that we are surrounded by. And those cultures, those are the people around us that react to what we say and do and so forth. And so there is a positive and negative reinforcement process that goes on in any culture. And the first culture is mother, and then maybe parents, and then family, and then it extends outward to other areas and so forth. So we continuously learn what we should and should not do. And so we have this ethical set of ethical beliefs and ethical sense, the philosophers refer to, the motivation to do what one believes is the right thing to do or what one should do. And that ethical sense can be weak or strong compared to the other motivational states that compete with it, like I want to hit that person. I believe I should not, therefore I want to not hit that person. Well, it depends on which is stronger and so on. So I'm oversimplifying a lot, but I believe the thing that I advocate for, and you've heard this thing about humanianity, that's just my label for what's happening to us humans. We're beginning to change the nature of our ethics. And it is the movement away from authoritarian ethics to the ethics of the social contract. And that is if there's a group of people that they make their decisions decisions are made by them by everyone and for everyone. And then using rationality, one would be able to deduce from from ethical beliefs that one has to other ethical beliefs about what one should do in this particular situation and so on. And what that rationality then causes is it goes upward. Like I use this example, which may not be a good one, holding a gun on a man and saying, I should not pull this trigger. So someone asked me, well, why should you not pull this trigger? And I say, I should not kill that man. If I pull this trigger, I will kill that man. Therefore, I should not pull this trigger. So then you can ask, well, why should you not kill that man? And I can go to a higher level ethical principle and so on. But that has to stop somewhere. So otherwise, it's an infinite regress. And so there's an ultimate ethical principle. And I tried to figure out what all of us could accept if we had adequate understanding of it and satisfactory mental health and so on. And that's the Humanian ultimate ethical principle. So at any rate, so I have, and that is, we should do that which will promote not only the survival of our species, but also as much joy, contentment, and appreciation as possible, and as little pain, suffering, disability, and early death as possible for everyone, now and in the future. And I believe we are still just a toddler. We're just beginning to go in that direction, and we may never make it. We may kill ourselves off next month. So, but the important thing is to become aware of it and to work toward it. And so I'm trying to do my part, and that's what I constructed the belief manual that's always upgradable, Bible-like study guide, that is always being improved and so on. That's on the website and so on. So, okay, so that's, I gave you, that's the backdrop against which you are presenting a different kind of word usage. And so when we get,
I think
one other
so.
thing,
Yeah.
reality, the term I use is reality is that which exists independent of anyone's beliefs about it or anyone's perceptions of it.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time, Bill. Say that
Yes.
again.
Reality is that which exists independent of anyone's beliefs about it or anyone's perceptions of it. The beliefs about it, perceptions of it are just models of reality. And we have no access to reality other than the ability to predict. So if our model of reality is unusually good, we are unusually able to make predictions that turn out to be what actually happens. And so we avoid making mistakes. So that's the that's the backdrop. You've just heard whom you're talking to.
Yeah, no, that's very good, because I think as you wrote these down, just so I have them here, because I think that this will help us, help you, especially now I know what kind of wordage to use that'll help you out. So with the first change you're talking about with the evolution and things like this, objectivists would do the same thing. We this is we have proof of that. We have proof of the evolutionary process. We have proof of through science and everything. We understand these things, what has happened, and
there's
yeah.
one problem here. No, we don't have proof. We have evidence in favor of. That's proof is what is in logical systems, like in Euclidean geometry or something like that.
Yeah, more of a validation we have right now. More of a, like you said, evidence that leads to that. Yeah, that's what I meant. So we know that through science that these, the Earth is, we don't know how old. It's over millions of years old, and everything like this. So that's part of existence. And same way, you say like we're one species among others, but we have like something built into us. As objectivists, we would say that man is a rational animal. We're the highest species with this rationality, but it is not. So objectivists deny the mind-body dichotomy. We don't believe that. We do believe in a consciousness, but this is integrated with matter, with us. We're one unit. We're integrated. We're not two separate things. So there's no warfare between the mind and the body like that. Now, this is really interesting. You talked about as man developed, he started to be able to create symbols and languages and writing and different things like this. And that's all part of in objectivism. This is all part of developing concepts and condensing things down. For example, if you were to you brought up a good example with math. So algebraic symbols are very important for man. Otherwise, there'd be no way to count individual lines forever, going forever. So instead, a mathematician can create a short little formula for us that explains all those numbers rather than, and so it condenses it down with symbols, and then we can learn it and understand it, and then we can know what it's saying. But the same thing with words and so forth like this. So that's same thing here, you know, but that's, we would put that as man learns to conceptualize and learn from other humans. So that's where, as human beings, we all have the natural things in us, like you talked about, increase for empathy, taking care of one another. Now, with objectivists, for us, human life is very important. It's we're really against, especially when we start talking about ethics and morality, the sacrifice of life for the cause of a government or a religion or anything is, or for someone to get ahead by sacrificing others and hurting other people and stuff like this. We are totally against that. That's us. That's immoral. That's immoral behavior. It only destroys mankind instead of helping out. And so yes, as we grow, we can give instructions to one another. We can communicate. We teach. We develop these things. And so the other point you talked about, the rationality. So yes, we are objectivists. This is one of the things we really emphasize, that man is a volitional, rational animal. So you have free choices to make. And of course, as humans, you know, good choices, bad choices, but it's up to you. And we have to learn how to make the right choices. And we emphasize logic as that man needs to use in his reason. And then also too, we have to have evidence though. And one of the things that I find that really drew my attention to objectivism was that if, let's say, you think that you have, or let's say I come up with this idea and I want to make sure it's ethical. Well, we would say then, based upon our going back to our metaphysics, epistemology, we would have to use logic. And what we would use also is reduction. We start with my premise, and now I got to work backwards to see how it connects all the way back down to all the way to existence, to see if this is something in reality. Because if it's not, then I'm outside of reality. Then I know that I don't have the evidence to validate that what I'm thinking is right. And that's from logic and using reduction like this. So I would have to, we would part ways when about the idea of the chimpanzees that you know, that we copy them. I could see that there are a lot of men who act like brute animals. They don't think. Now we have another cause for that. We believe that humans are born neutral, not good or bad. The earth itself is not good or bad. The universe is not good or bad. But because we're rational animals that have volition, we have choices that, like you said, our culture could teach us, our parents could teach us, and it could be bad things. And those bad teachings could lead us to making the wrong choices. So, for example, if I'm told that Jews are evil and they're a scourge and we shouldn't mix bloods with them and all this stuff that Hitler taught, and I start to believe this as a young man, And I think that this is the right thing to do, that we really need to do this. Well, then I start acting like a brute animal. I'm not reasoning. I'm not acting rational here. I'm just going by what I'm taught that's outside of reality and doing that. So um, objectivists are against authoritarian ethics as well. We do not believe in the idea that um, one person at the top tells everybody else what they have to believe. Um,
Say it again.
we don't believe that there's a person at the top
Mhm.
that tells us what we have to believe. Now, this is where you're going to find out with with objectivism, there are no axioms for ethics. And the reason why, and this is a really interesting reason, is because it varies with every human. This is where humans were different. There are things that you may like or believe is ethical that I may agree with, but you may have a different degree of what the ethic is compared to me. Or what you may think is ethical, I may not. I may think is neutral. I don't think it's anything. You feel that you have to do it. I feel that I don't have to do that. And because of that, there can't be someone at the top saying, okay, these are the ethics. You have to obey these, and you can't do otherwise. If you do, you're an evil person or you're bad like this. So we would be against that because we believe in the individuality. But like you said, though, that social contract then is what humans have to do to get along. Now, this may be a little different with what you believe compared to objectivism. Objectivism, man's life is his highest value as an individual. But this requires him then, in order to succeed in this life, is to get along and socialize with the other humans. And we know that that's why humans, as we grow as a social system together, and we cooperate with one another, then it's in our best interest to do that, and then we can flourish, and other people can flourish, and but there has to be a social contract. We have to agree that, hey, I'm not going to go around allowing people to kill each other out in the streets and stuff like this. We have to make a social contract um, and make a government for that. So um, now we talked about trying to find the ultimate principle. And this is a very deep topic in objectivism. It's really, it's kind of, it comes across a little simplistic, but at the same time, it's kind of complex in how to explain it. Basically, the way the ethical principles work in objectivism is that because your life is the highest value to you, that virtue and morality are not what you're trying to achieve. They're not the ends, but they're the means to the ends, which is the value you want to obtain and then keep. So,
This is
good.
this is there are all sorts of things that I think are questionable in what you're describing. Uh, for a particular person, the highest value may not be that person remaining alive. That's you know that a fair number of people come to not believe that.
Right. And some people, if it depends what it is. Let's, for example, someone has severe cancer and they're suffering in a terrible way, and there's no cure.
Mhm.
They cannot live a good human life this way. They may want to end it. And there are times when um, this is kind of controversial, but objectivists would say if they want to end it at that time because they cannot live like a normal human being, as a terrible existence, then they should be allowed to. Okay. Now, if a person is mentally ill or something like that, or induced by drugs, and they want to end their life just because they're not thinking straight, that's a different story. But there are times where it can happen, and that's a little bit. I think a majority of Americans, because of their Western upbringing, might not agree with that. That's always been a controversy in our country, that kind of thing. But yeah, so for objectivists, then the highest principle, the way we would know that, like for example, you use the thing about why should we kill someone? Well, in objectivism, from our creation as a human beings and existence as humans, the man's life being the highest value is equal and given to all humans equally. And so that individual has that for him. And so because that belongs to them, it's immoral for me to take that from that person. And also too, it wouldn't, that kind of behavior then, as we know from reality, is a destructive behavior that only hurts humanity instead of helping humanity. And so as objectivists,
You said, we know from reality. See, I'm lost there. I don't know what that means. And so you are going pretty far up the hierarchy, I think. I think we were talking about initially about staying down at the bottom.
Yeah, right.
So
no, I was just going through your three
yeah.
Just to kind of briefly hit on that to see what, because I was trying to understand where you were coming from. And yeah, so okay, so if we get back to reality then, and that's what I was for objectivists, reality then is the three things: existence, okay, and that is what we perceive with our sense perceptions. It's here. And then our consciousness, which is our awareness as a human, and we start to learn. And then the identity, the ability to start to identify things, distinguish things, and then later develops into our conceptualization, where we can actually, categorize things, put things in units, and make sense. That's our knowledge. But
this hierarchy, this beginning hierarchy, I'm not following. It's the very first statement that you'd make is what?
what about existence?
Whatever it would be, what's the very first axiom?
Existence.
Okay, well, that's not an axiom, that's a word. An axiom, it has to be a sentence.
Well, in objective philosophy, that's the axiom. That's existence. Existence is, there's three.
That doesn't have any meaning. Existence is not defined. It is a problematic word, but it's also not a sentence. An axiom is a belief that is accepted as not questionable in the current way in which it is used. So parallel lines never meet would be a sentence, and that would be an axiom. But we know that in Riemannian geometry, I think they do meet. So one does not have to accept that as an axiom. One does not have to accept anything as an axiom, but one can indeed. And if this can be an axiom that everyone can agree to, then that is a big step forward.
Yes,
But
and that's where I think existence is something that all humans could agree on. Because I mean, existence is something that all humans can agree on.
Well,
Can they
existence
not? Unless you don't believe in existence.
existence
I mean,
is, I think what you're meaning is existence exists.
mhm,
Okay, that's a sentence. The only
yes,
problem is that it is probably a tautology because um, how do you define existence? Well, it is that which exists. Well, so that's circular reasoning. That's uh, that's a tautology. So that cannot that can't be a foundation for anything so far. Now, what I would say is existence. No, I would say reality is that which exists independent of our beliefs about it or our perceptions of it. And maybe it could be improved, that definition. But
now
then,
I
but
kind of
then,
I kind of agree with I kind of agree with what you just said that it would be independent of one's beliefs,
mhm.
but depending on what uh, for example, if there was a belief system that taught something that was outside of what we know that's in our real world, the reality, um, then that, despite what that belief is teaching, what really exists in this universe is something else. So, for example, we would say like, okay, the sun exists, right? Is that real? The sun?
There's a problem there. And again, the mind-body problem book clarifies it. We can make all sorts of assertions. Um, now, to simplify, I would agree that the sun exists. I mean, I wouldn't be in disagreement, with that. But when we're down at a fundamental way of getting started with the belief system, then just saying the same things that everybody else says or most people say or something like that is not sufficient. Nor do I think that you believe that. You're believing that there should be a logical progression. But the first thing that it sounds like we have a disagreement about is your you may no longer be believing this, but your belief that a single word is an axiom, and I would say that that cannot be so. But on the other hand, that single word may be a label for a sentence. And what you're proposing is that that sentence be existence exists. The only problem with that is it still doesn't say what existence is, what is meant by the word existence, and what is meant by the word exists. So we are kind of stuck. I am stuck there in trying to identify with the way of thinking that objectivism is going about.
Well, how about this? Existence is that which is, was, and will be.
Well,
Based
no,
and on it's based on our our own perceptions as humans. I mean, you walk outside during the day, you're going to see the sun.
okay, let me do this.
That's existence.
Let me ask you this. Did existence exist before life developed on this planet?
I don't know. Now, if this
Fair
planet
enough.
was here and it, the universe was here, it probably, if it was there, it existed. It always has been. So we don't,
So it's not dependent upon human perceiving it or consciousness.
well, our consciousness, we become aware of the things in our existence that
Yeah,
exist.
but we're not saying that existence depends upon our consciousness of it.
No,
Right.
our consciousness depends upon existence.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about with the
But
primacy, that the existence takes primacy over our consciousness.
on the other hand, our consciousness can be not a good model of reality, of that which exists independent of our beliefs about it and our perceptions of it. Because
That's why we have.
people can hallucinate, they
Mhm.
mirages and stuff like that.
Exactly. That's why, that's why I was saying, I was agreeing with you that we also believe that the humans have a rationality, that we have to use our rationality. And the reason, logic is our reason that we use as humans to determine what is truth through validation. And that's what I talked about, where you just can't. Okay, you could say, well, I believe in gremlins live on the moon. Okay. Well, how do you know that? I mean, we haven't observed anything like that. The men have been on the moon. We've looked at the telescopes. We don't see any gremlins living on there. So now we've got to do a logical reduction. And that reduction will go all the way back to existence. And we can find out there's no validation for such a claim. So that person then is not in reality. They're thinking, their belief is outside of reality at that moment.
Well,
And they have to be corrected.
that's not terminology that I would use, but it is a way that people do speak sometimes. Out of touch with reality would be a little bit more consistent with what I was talking about. Um, but
Right.
so So
So
there's
are you understanding it yet? What we mean by existence? That
no,
you still
no,
know.
no. I don't think that I have heard a sentence that is a definition of existence.
Well, I thought I said that which is, was, and will be.
Well, there are many things that you're using "and" in there, but something can be true now and will not be true ever again in the future. So to say "and will be" would mess up
Or
the
will be.
definition.
Or, I mean, maybe, or will be is a better word for that. But basically, existence for an objectivist is the earth, the universe, humans, animals, nature, all the things that you see here as a human is existence. It's matter. That's what existence is. And
Does,
it's things,
does
but it's
conscious,
even things that we can't see though. Like, for example, gravity is an existence, but you can't see it, but we can see what it does. We can study it. We learn, humans have learned about it. It's an existence.
does democracy exist?
Yes. Now, democracy is something that man makes, though. So it's not one of the man-made fact. We call that a man-made fact because it's a fact of life that there are democracies that humans have made. Okay, but that man-made fact is not a what would you call it? Not a fact of existence. Fact of existence is here. Okay, all right, like the planets in the universe or something. Okay, but then there are so for example, like so existence, then we would then as objectivists take that because existence is there, it is. And that means that the metaphysics, which is the study of nature and the universe as a whole, is a given and an absolute then.
What do you mean by
that? Is a given and absolute.
What do you mean absolute?
Well, metaphysics is an absolute because it's necessitated by existence. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it. And you can't.
What does absolute mean?
Absolute means absolute. It's unchangeable. It's man can't change it. Now, there's a difference between man discovering things and then using what nature has and stuff like this to create something. But to be an absolute, then it's unchangeable. Man can't alter it, or any other agency. It's absolute. Now, but that differs from man-made things. So, for example, democracy is not an absolute because man can change it. Man created it, man can change it. So it doesn't mean it's always going to be here. In some countries, it goes away. Okay.
So it does not exist?
It exists, but it's a man-made, that is a man-made fact. Okay, it exists because humans exist, but humans, we create that through our consciousness. Okay, that comes through our consciousness. That's why human consciousness is one of the axioms. Okay, because that there's existence, consciousness, and identity. The creation of democracy as a government comes from humans. Okay, it's not something that just exists in the universe by itself. So humans, we create those things. Okay, so that's the difference right there. But what I'm talking about is the existence, um, like I would say the existence of the universe, the earth, the natural existence of things that are already here, not what man creates on his own later. Okay. Now,
Let me
those
ask
things,
this. Do you believe that, in the existence of any supernatural entities?
well, I'll tell you, objectivism does not. Now, my personal opinion, my personal belief outside of objectivism philosophy is I don't know. Um, but the philosophy of objectivism, now I want to say Ayn Rand's objectivism because there are different forms of objectivism and some do, but Ayn Rand's objectivism, she did not believe in that, in supernatural. She didn't believe in a God. She was an atheist, actually.
Yeah. Well, would you agree that consciousness is a supernatural entity?
No.
Well, are you aware that it is nowhere to be found in the natural sciences? You don't see any variables related to it. You don't see hydrogen plus chlorine plus anger leads to hydrogen chloride and equanimity. And so I would say that consciousness is a supernatural entity. Are you aware that consciousness has never been observed?
I think the effects of consciousness is observable, especially with
No,
introspection.
not consciousness itself. Are you aware that consciousness itself has never been observed?
But I mean, you can observe it um, by just the interaction of humans and humans, what we do,
You can
right?
observe interactions of humans. That's not observing consciousness.
Yeah, but you're using consciousness right now to deny that consciousness exists, right?
I'm not denying that consciousness exists, but I'm saying it has never been observed.
Oh, you mean like as far as um, like external observation, right? Empirical observation, or are you talking about um, um,
Any kind of observation. You cannot observe anyone else's consciousness, and you cannot observe your own consciousness.
but you can think, right? So
Oh,
you could observe your own consciousness through introspection,
no,
but you can do that yourself.
no, you can use words, but you cannot observe consciousness. You can observe things that you would say were in your consciousness, like the computer you're looking at or whatever, but you cannot
So,
observe consciousness.
but would you say there's evidence of a consciousness? That we have it? Or are
I
you
would,
saying that consciousness is otherworldly, that outside of us or something?
I'm not saying either of those things exactly. Again, you'd have to go to the mind-body problem book to, it's really a very difficult line of reasoning and so on. But it is covered in there. If you can't observe that which something is not, such that there's a boundary between what something is and what something is not, and you can't observe that boundary, then you can't observe it. You can make up a word for it, like you can make up a word for God.
So would consciousness then be a good word to describe man's ability to reason and rationalize and to develop concepts and learn
No,
and make choices?
no, I would certainly not say that. I believe that dogs have consciousness in the same way that humans have it, to the extent that whatever you mean by humans having consciousness, it applies to dogs and cats and other animals. What is different for us humans is our symbolic language. And you've referred to concept formation. And I think my best bet is that that is a concept that is dependent upon symbolic language.
Well, it causes man to create languages and symbols, letters, so we can communicate these things and we can condense information down, um, and we can add to it as we learn and discover things. But that comes from our rationality. It comes from our, so
I
for me,
believe,
consciousness is awareness. I mean,
yes, but you've
we have
never
it.
observed your awareness or anybody else's awareness. You believe in the existence of it, but you have not
I,
observed it. That would be like believing in the existence of God, but never having been aware of God, never perceiving God. It is a supernatural concept. I think that it is a useful terminology and useful concept. And I think that the mind-body problem, I haven't seen other people come to the conclusions that I have in that book. And some have said that they thought the book was good, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is. and I can't form an unbiased opinion about my book. But so this idea of humans being rational, I think rationality we humans go back however long, a million years or whatever. And it's only relatively recently that we have developed rationality. And we use it in some ways to an extremely complicated extent and have accomplished a lot. But when it is in the area of ethics, no, we have very little operation of rationality. It's very little. There should be more, in my way of looking at it, because ethically, we are pretty bad, using my definition of bad, meaning causing pain, suffering, disability, and early death, and interfering with joy, contentment, and appreciation, or even the survival of our species. That's what I mean by ethically bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're breaking up. You broke up. I didn't hear what you said.
So with your last statement, I'm in agreement with you, but I think my reasoning, the reasons I believe that man is recently starting to come around on a lot of things because of, like in Western civilization, it was, say, religion guided man. Look at the middle, the Dark Ages up through medieval times, through religion guiding man. It was a pretty much oppressive way of life for people then under religion, like it still is in the Middle East. And other ideas too. There have been other forms of government that have, and ideas of with monarchs, communism, and so forth, where life is not regarded at all. Everybody's a sacrificial lamb. And I think the Enlightenment had changed that men broke away from these, I call it mystic ideas about life. And then they started to then try to use their rational thinking and their logic as to the best way that men should live. But like you said, it's taken time. It's not, there's some good moments in our history, but then there's been bad ones, and there's been some learning. Humans, because we're not perfect beings, and we live by choices that humans have made bad choices. But then again, we're starting to learn, and like you said, we're trying to correct our mistakes as we move forward.
Can you excuse me for just a couple of minutes?
Sure.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
I'm back.
Okay.
So I've kind of lost track where we were.
Well, we're talking on consciousness. So objectivists, we do believe that every human has a conscience. It's our awareness, it's an attribute that we have, an ability. But for us, it is not supernatural. It is not otherworldly. It's this worldly. It's in us. It's integrated with our bodies.
You used the word conscience, not consciousness.
I meant consciousness. I'm sorry, our consciousness. Sorry, it's getting late. It's consciousness. So it is not. We do not believe in an eternal. It's not eternal. It's not immortal like that. It's integrated into us, Um,
Why
and
do you believe that?
because if you had for example, the materialists deny any consciousness, that man does not have that. Okay. So they believe in existence without consciousness. The problem with that then is that humans would not be able to have any kind of uh, logical methodology. We'd be just like, uh, robots or just brute beasts walking
I,
around with instinct.
I do not agree with that. Um, we are being able to produce um, entities that are much more capable than us along those lines, artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, but humans make that.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean. So, do you think that artificial intelligence is conscious?
No,
Okay.
not like us. They cannot. They have to be programmed and have an algorithm put in them by a human to um, to do whatever the algorithm tells me to do in reaction to something.
Well,
But
do you not think that we have algorithms in ourselves?
we have sense perception, which is automatic, but our consciousness is where humans then, things are not automatic. They have to be learned. Then as we increase our knowledge, we can remember things. We can learn from mistakes. We can learn from teaching. And we build that knowledge and then we make our choices. See,
Yeah, see,
humans are volitional. They're
well,
not,
that's a
we're not
state.
pre-programmed.
That's a statement. However, it is not consistent with the natural sciences. In other words, the humans being volitional um, is a supernatural concept. It is not anywhere in the natural sciences. Some refer to it as agency. But according to the natural sciences, whatever you do, that's what you were going to do, given the whole past history uh, leading up to your particular circumstances at the moment.
Well, that's supernatural. That's determinism, right? Determinism is supernatural philosophy there.
No,
We
I
don't,
think it's the other way around. Determinism is what the natural sciences is based upon. Um, free will is the supernatural concept.
because religion is deterministic.
No,
Mm-hmm.
no. Well, in the first place, to make a general statement about religion uh, is very inappropriate because there are so many different religions. But take just standard Christianity, let's say. It is not deterministic. It is based upon free will. And that's why the idea for the more fundamentalist Christianity is that, okay, you decided to do it, well, then you'll spend the rest of eternity in hell or something, you'll be punished. If you could not avoid doing what you did, then there wouldn't be any reason to punish you for it. And fundamentalist Christianity is very much based upon reward and punishment by a supernatural agent.
Well, that's where we would definitely disagree because
Really? Where would we?
I don't think that determinism is, well, we believe determinism isn't real in objectivism. That
Oh,
your life is your own path, that you
yeah.
choose what you want to do.
Yes.
You're not, the fates don't control you on a chessboard. You know, you're not
Mhm.
uh, you're not destined to, because then,
But that doesn't mean it's not so. It's just an assertion.
but how do you know it's so?
No, I say it's just an assertion. Um, you could take either position. You could take the supernatural position of free will, or you could take the natural science um, position of determinism. And you, depending upon what you wanted to do, you could choose one or the other. If you want to punish the individual, then using free will is consistent with that. If you're wanting to uh, be non-judgmental and non-punitive, then determinism is helpful. Not necessary. One can have the one can have supernatural concepts of uh, free will and consciousness and so forth, and have an ethics that says never punish anyone. For instance, I have the belief that children should never be punished. And that's way out of the norm for me to believe that. Um, uh, I cover that in my first book in the chapter on rational ethical child rearing. And all of that's available free on the website, by the way, under philosophy. But so you notice how many differences there are, how many problems there are in us being able to say we agree.
Well, when I was going through your 3 points of humanity, there were some things that I was saying that I agree with. Um, that I see that they're same thing, different words, but the ideas are the same.
Uh-huh.
Maybe some reasons why certain things have happened we may disagree with.
Mhm.
And there are some things that um, we differ on, especially with the consciousness, but we would agree on that man uses his rationality and uses logic as the method to determine things. Things like this, we definitely agree on that.
No, no,
That's
no, we don't agree. We use that to some extent, but it is widely understood how irrational we are and how we develop belief systems that it is very difficult to change, even with lots of uh, information to the contrary, like people that are um, uh, invested in or believe in conspiracy theories and things of that sort. Uh, uh, it is uh, it is well recognized that man is basically irrational. However, he is becoming somewhat more rational, and in some areas is very rational, but in other areas, especially in the area of ethics, is quite irrational.
Okay, I was talking about that humans, we need to use our rationality, right? That's what I was saying. We need to use our rationality.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree.
mean that there are people that are irrational. I wasn't saying that. I don't deny that either. What I'm saying is that we have to use our rationality. Logic is a good method, it's the best method for humans to use in our with our rationality, uh, which is our reason. Those are things I said, yes, we have to do that. I believe that.
Now, by the way, logic is just like mathematics and stuff like that, but the rules of evidence giving us our highly accurate existential beliefs is the important addition. Do you know what I mean by existential beliefs?
Oh, explain it to me.
Okay, we can um, uh, we model our beliefs in words, so we can use sentences, and in that way, we can actually divide our beliefs into two categories pretty easily: existential and ethical. Um, Existential beliefs are beliefs about, quote, existence, what exists and or has existed and or will or might exist, and how it all works. The ises. And then ethical beliefs are the oughts, what should and should not be done. And so that's an important distinction to make between existential beliefs and ethical beliefs. And see, the sciences provide us with extremely accurate existential beliefs, but they don't have to do with ethical beliefs. So our sciences enable us to create nuclear power plants and nuclear bombs. So what we should do is something that has to be worked out otherwise. And the social function that has been most carried out by is our set of religions. The problem is our religions are very non-rational and authoritarian in their ethics, and were created, most of them, prior to the current scientific knowledge about what exists and how it works and so forth. And it is hard for people and therefore for religions to change and come into the modern world. However, they are doing so. And within Christianity, a good example is Bishop Spong. Christianity must change or die. And so that's a very interesting and good book. I don't agree with his conclusions, but but on the other hand, I understand exactly where he's coming from.
Well, if I tell you that when you use existential as far as what you said exists, the study of what exists, but is. That's what I've been trying to say this whole time is our starting point. That's what existence is. That's what it is. Now,
Well,
that
yes.
doesn't teach you an ethic, though. Like you said, I totally agree with that. That's what I was saying at the beginning, the very beginning of the discussion. It's what exists is not good, it's not evil, it's nothing. It's just there. So it cannot. That's why, like you said, and I'm repeating what you just said,
Yeah.
that there's two different things there. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So that's exactly what I've been saying. That the so maybe we've just been using different words or something. I don't know. But
To some extent, yes.
yeah. But that's, I mean, so existence
Not,
is, it's there.
not entirely. I think that uh, objectivism, as you have presented it, is not understandable at its core. Uh, it No, that's not correct. Many people will feel like they understand it, and if that's what understanding means, then yes. But as far as the usage of words and everything, um, there are major problems. Um, but we may be able to make progress in bringing the two belief systems closer together by exploring word usage and so on.
Well, you almost repeated, this is what I'm not, I guess I'm not following correctly. You almost repeated an exact definition of existence that I gave earlier that you said was wrong. And then you said almost the same exact thing with existentialism. And then when I said I agree with that, you said, no, you don't. So I'm not sure if you're hearing me correctly or you're just being disagreeable. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to figure that out because
Hopefully, I'm not being disagreeable. I gather you mean having a need to disagree or something like that, but hopefully not. No, you are right that there is a problem in that area. What I was talking about, um, uh, trying to convey, it has to do with our word usage. Uh, the basic underlying thing that I'm talking about is our beliefs. And then there is this set of beliefs that when modeled in words, has the word should in the sentence. Of course, it could have other words like ought to and so on, the right thing to do and stuff like that. But those beliefs about what should be done are one set of beliefs. Everything else is what is being labeled by me and has been labeled by others, philosophers, as existential beliefs. And it does not have to do with existentialism. That's a different issue. But it's just uh, sentences that have the word is in them, or is not, or are not. Of course, that can be an inaccurate sort of thing, because one could say something is the right thing to do. Well, that's an ethical belief. It doesn't have the word should in it. So it all has to do with word usage. And we humans, we learn our words poetically. We gradually learn to distinguish words from each other. And it's only in technical fields where, generally speaking, where we try to have a precise meaning to the words. But otherwise, what we do is we use words very poetically. And so they can sound right because they make us feel different ways and so forth. But they can be found to have problems in them if they are looked at too closely. Most of the time, people don't look at them too closely. And there's some reluctance to do so. In the philosophy discussion group, I can kind of get into trouble by saying, well, we keep using the word such and such. What does it mean? Well, there you go again, Bill, trying to, complicate things. So,
So how about this for a definition of existence then?
okay.
Something that is versus nothing.
And that would include contradiction. Does contradiction exist?
It exists amongst humans, but not in the universe.
Okay, yes, contradiction has to do with sentences. And so now other species on other planets may indeed have, linguistics and have different sentences that can be contradictory. Does North Carolina exist?
Yes.
Do you think an alien coming from another solar system would be able to find North Carolina?
Well, first we have to find out if there are other aliens out there from another planet.
I'm sorry, say it again.
We would have to find out if there were, first of all, there's aliens in another planet somewhere. I don't know.
Well, we could just postulate, we could ask the question, if there are aliens, and if they do make it to our planet, would they would find trees, they would find people,
Yep.
they would find houses, would they find North Carolina?
Not unless they learned about it. They'd have to learn our concepts here that we have of countries and states, that we name them.
But do they really exist?
Yeah, they really exist. Countries and states, the United States of America really exists.
You could not draw a line around one where on one side it was North Carolina and on the other side it was something else.
I'm not sure where you're going with this. It's because I'm in North Carolina right now.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't know. I'm not following here what you're trying to get at.
Well, the way that I would describe it is some things exist by definition only. We define bring them into existence. We have a man and a woman, and we bring another entity into existence, married couple. We actually bring two more. We bring into existence wife and husband. So the number of entities is increasing from that initial two. But those things are brought into existence by definition only.
Now, see, that's where we, as objectivists, would disagree. That's what we would consider, like I said early on, that is concept formation from things that actually exist. But we start to formulate concepts, just like you were doing. You were actually developing concepts right there. That's what we would say. You were just developing concepts of things that are real. Okay. But at first glance, if I see a man, just a man, I'm seeing just a man. I don't know anything else about him or whatever. Now,
he is a son.
Okay.
He could also be father. So that's three entities.
Mm-hmm.
But they're brought into existence by definition only.
Right. And but no, because he really exists. And he really does those. He is all of those things. If he has his child, he's a father. Okay.
Only by definition. That doesn't bring us another entity into the world in the same sense that another man appeared. But we say that this is an entity, a father. But that's by definition only. And no alien is going to find some other entity. The alien can learn how we use words and learn how we use definitions and so on. Of course.
Yeah, but isn't that just putting identity on these entities when we say that he's a father? But he's also a man. But he's the same person. But he's got, now we're creating identities. This is how we learn as humans. This is all part of the concept formation, right?
What do we mean by identity?
What you were just doing. He's a father. He's a man. There's a rock. It's a piece of paper.
So we're talking about the label that is assigned.
Not a label. We would say it's identity of what it is. That entity has an identity, and that identity then has a nature to it.
Yeah, well, that sounds kind of strange to me.
Well, what you were saying sounded real strange to me. So I guess we're both on different sides of the fence here.
Yeah, that's right. I can draw a circle on the wall and say that what is inside that circle is Abaland. Does Abaland exist?
We'd have to find out if it is or not. Now, if it's not, you just made it up, then it's not.
How would you find out? Well, we just make up the label of father.
Well, we as humans have developed, like you said, words to be able to condense and define for quicker knowledge, rather than having to start from scratch every single time we see something to figure it out. So that's how that's knowledge. That's our knowledge. That's how we build our knowledge.
these are tools that we use, words and sentences and so on, that help us to do things.
Mhm. So, uh, I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I must seem to be a pretty hopeless uh, individual with regard to objectivism, with regard to conversion to objectivism.
you don't have to be converted to it. It's just, I just wanted to share with you what you know, how it, the philosophy of it, so you could have more of appreciation for it more than anything.
Yeah. Yes. Mhm.
You know,
No, I
so
understand that. Sure.
it is more, it's not, some people get confused that it's more just rationalism mixed with materialism, but it's not, because it is more based on, it's more scientific in its approach, um, because it's not a, it doesn't believe. Now, I know you believe consciousness is supernatural. They don't believe that it's supernatural. They believe it's attribute of man. But outside of that, um, the objectivist philosophy does not believe in any kind of mysticism at all, and that's why, there are some people that get turned off by it because of that. Because there are a lot of people who hold the supernatural and mysticism and things like this, and so it's not. Um, and it, but it's there's a whole bunch more to it than what we're just talking about. But
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, we decided to kind of stay at the bottom of the hierarchy and try to see if we could come to some agreement about some of that. And so maybe that's still possible, but it would require uh, some probably terminology clarifications or changes or something like that. Um, does objectivism accept capitalism?
it accepts it as a consequence, going back to, nature and the nature of man. Um, that's why I was trying to explain that the stemming from its three main tenets, that, existence is, then you have consciousness, which is our awareness, and then identity. So we start to, as humans, do this, and then from that starting point, ethics comes out of that, and then after ethics and the goals of man and the man's main pursuit in life, capitalism itself is an outcome of that. But where we differ from, like, let's say, for example, the political party libertarians would start with capitalism, and they would give all the arguments for why it's the best system for prosperity and freedom, et cetera, et cetera. Well, a Republican who doesn't believe in outright capitalism would disagree. So would a Democrat, and so forth. And they would have arguments against that, and then they just never ends. But with objectivism, the philosophy, that they believe is correct stemming from nature then bring about capitalism. But it's more of, it's kind of interesting that the capitalism really shouldn't be named. It's basically just how humans get along without government interfering with them, except for protection. That's the only thing. But otherwise, for a long time, humans were able to just do business with one another, trade with one another, help each other out, things without the government interfering. And there was a great book written by Adam Smith on that. And it was just an observation that he was observing this. He didn't even have a name for it yet. Capitalism would come later as a name to distinguish it from socialism or communism and things like this. But it's kind of, in a sense, personally, it has to be careful that capitalism itself does not become a theory in and of itself, because then you're saying that we have to take the capitalism and apply it. Rather, it should be the opposite way around. The way people live then should go in. Capitalism will be natural in form. But so that's just my personal belief on that. But yeah, it's just a consequence of the other things that lead up to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a number of likes to a post that I did in Facebook where I said capitalism is an accepted form of slavery. So, but at any rate, I note that the time is getting pretty late and I have a meal to get in.
Okay.
Try to get it in at length sometime before I go to bed and so on. Are you still in favor of us having continuing sessions like this?
Sure. Yeah. It's good to think about and try to throw these things out there at one another, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Bill, I really appreciate it. And, we'll talk to you later.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it also. So,
all right. Happy New Year.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Humanity, now we all can see. Humanity, how much better we can